Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Please Watch This, where two film-loving mates with gaps in their viewing history recommend films to one another so they can once and for all answer the question, who has better taste? With me this week, as always, is my co-host Sam Blakely. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Hugh.
How are you today?
I'm very well indeed. I've seen our film today, so, I'm feeling post-film goodness.
Post-film goodness, That's what you always like to have, isn't it? Are you looking forward to getting into the caves and spider webs of Indiana Jones? Well, not Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Is there a problem with that? Am I not supposed to call it Indiana Jones?
Well, this is the thing, right? So today's episode, let's explain, is going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark. You might have heard of it, a small little film made by independent studio Paramount. They're known. So with this one, this one's called Raiders of the Lost Ark, but the next two, all the other three, should I say, were titled Indiana Jones, and then it was
and the Temple of Doom.
You've got
now that's interesting. I've got the DVD case in front of me here now. I'm going to take your word for it because you are the expert and host on this. My DVD case does say Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is that somehow some sort of retcon? Don't know if I'm using that word correctly.
I think yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah, retroactively. Is it retroactively? What does it stand?
Yeah.
I know what it means.
Maybe it's retroactively confirming or contradicting, constructing.
Yeah.
I don't know actually. I've heard it a lot. I've used it a lot.
It's a portmanteau of two.
And it must be retroactive
words, isn't it?
At the least retrospective. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, and this is the episode that I'm recommending to Sam. After such success we had with The Empire Strikes Back, it was a barnstormer. I'm hoping at least. Well, I mean, it's still a great film.
Well, I mean, this is a discussion I've had in my head a little while. Should we give away the opinions from previous episodes in our shows? I'm quite
happy to. I mean, we're watching these in a particular order, so there is going to be context for what we're watching today because it's essentially produced by the same person who produced the Star Wars films. So there's going to be a lot of references to that, and the cinematography and the language of these films are actually very similar.
When you heard my let's face it, wholly negative view of Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, was there a moment where you thought maybe I shouldn't have put Indy on this list because it is, like you say, it does share such a heritage?
Yes, if I'm being brutally honest. But I was hoping perhaps the difference, even though there's a similar genre, sort of that Western feel to it, the pulp fiction nature of the
1930s,
40s TV, Flash Gordon kind of epic sort of. I was hoping maybe a different kind of, they have a similar tone. I'm not going to pretend they don't. Like all 6 of the films, let's ignore Crystal Skull because it's awful. But the second one's not too great. But the first and the third one, which we will talk about. So the second one's the Temple of Doom.
That's not too great, right? Okay, I've not seen it. I heard good things about it.
Really? Yeah, I'm not. Well, personally, I mean, not to spoil it for anyone, we won't be doing Temple of Doom unless you want to, because I don't really like it, and we won't be doing Crystal Skull because I was let down by that.
And then what's the other one?
The other one's The Last Crusade, which is a good film. Yeah.
Is that the one with Sean Connery?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
That is genuinely good fun. If you do like this,
would I need to watch Temple of Doom?
No.
Okay.
Quite frankly, no. You can watch it. You can. I might have. To be honest, I might have thought you might have watched all of at least the 80s ones originally.
I did think about that before this show. Yeah. But I also thought maybe it would somehow affect my memory of Raiders if I liked or disliked Temple of Doom more, etc.
Yeah. Maybe we should watch it then if you do like this one, because then we'll have a difference. You can recommend it to me.
Well, we'll find out later if I like it. So I'll start with the big first question. What does Raiders mean to you, Hugh?
So, Raiders of the Lost Ark means to me a rip-roaring Lucas Spielberg adventure film with Harrison Ford going around punching Nazis and getting, occultist artifacts from the ground with some questionable views on race and quite honestly, it's great sound design, great composition. I watched, like I said, like you, I watched it again today. And the cinematography in that film is just gorgeous. Some of the scenes in it, like the bits in the jungle, the bits in the desert, when they're in Peru and at the beginning when they're out in the jungle. Obviously, you can tell the difference between the sets and the jungle, like, modern HD, Blu-ray, formats aren't as generous as film was to the sets. We've probably mentioned this before, but yeah, like the details, when they're in Cairo, you feel like they're actually in 1930s Cairo. I mean, I wasn't there, but
I did get a sweat on.
Yeah, exactly. What else did I like? Yeah, the bit when they're in the desert. Now, I've known nothing about archaeology, but I don't know if those people were doing real digging, if that makes sense, or if they, I'm always sat there going, I wonder if archaeologists are watching this and going, what are the people in the background doing? What are they doing?
Mugs.
Why are they there? Yeah,
these absolute schoolboys. It's interesting you say about the cinematography. We'll get into reviews a bit later, but there was a great line from Roger Ebert, who we've now mentioned in every episode.
Yep.
He said there used to be a magazine named Thrilling Wonder Stories, and every shot in Raiders of the Lost Ark looks like one of its covers. I thought, that really fit. That really chimes with what you're saying about the cinematography, the visual aspects of it.
So I'll tell you why. I've just gone into why I like it. It's that when again all of this, we always have to put these films in context. So for me, I think the first Indiana Jones I saw bits and pieces of. I think all three when I was growing up, but never really sat down and watched them properly until maybe I was like 9, 10 or 11 or something like that. And I think the first one I actually ended up watching was The Last Crusade. So when I went, as you get a bit older and realise when things are made, I went back and watched Raiders, and obviously then watched Temple of Doom and then The Last Crusade. So I watched all three in order at some point, and I like Raiders. For me, as I mentioned, I really love The Last Crusade. It's a bit more kiddie than this film, if that makes sense. It's a little more childish, where this one, there's like people get shot in the head in this.
There was one of my notes is lot of deaths.
Yeah, so obviously this film was directed by Spielberg, produced by George Lucas. Do you know who it was written by?
Lawrence something.
Yeah, so Lawrence Kasdan. Where does that name sound familiar to you?
Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume Star Wars.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's me old mucker, Lawrence Kasdan. So he wrote Empire, basically.
Right, I see.
So I'll give you a quick history of like how indie came about.
Please do.
So, did you look into this yourself? Do you know any of this?
I watched a little making of thing, and I got the DVD, so I watched some of the extras on there. I'm still a bit confused, so the more you can do to enlighten me, the better. Yes,
so basically George Lucas came up with the idea. Him and Spielberg were on holiday together in, I think, Hawaii, and they would always mention how they'd love to make a James Bond film, and that got Lucas basically thinking and going, well, actually, when I was coming up with some films to make in the early 70s, I'd come up with like an American version of this. A guy, and he called him Indiana Smith rather than Jones, and it was Spielberg who made him change the name ultimately.
It's amazing because Smith and Jones are such similar names in that sort of just typical English white British sort of surname.
Yeah.
And yet Indiana Smith is so much worse as a name than Indiana Jones.
Is it one of those things though where you're just so familiar with the name Indiana Jones that it's just ubiquitous to you now that when somebody puts Indiana in front of Smith, you're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. That sounds weird, or is that just me?
I think you might be right. Yeah, I suppose I know it as Indiana Jones rather than
Indiana Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I like the fact that he went, oh, well, I'm going to give him this like American-y name, but also give him a real Englishy kind of generic name.
It's so incongruous, isn't it?
Yeah.
So with Sean Connery playing his father in the third one, do we get into any insight as to what young Indy was like?
That'd be a spoiler.
Oh, right, okay, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, we'll have to get that at some point. So they basically said, "Oh, we'd love to make a Bond film," but Lucas essentially went, "Well, actually, being George Lucas and the unassuming confidence he has, I went, well, I've got this film that we can make a better James Bond film, because you don't remember these are the era of Roger Moore films. They're a bit hit and miss, quite frankly, as a Bond fan. They're my least favourite Bond films, quite frankly.
I'm not into Bond. I only got into Bond through Daniel Craig, to be honest. It wasn't, not for me, really.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be on a future episode.
Yeah, I definitely want, there's 2 Bond films I want you to watch, maybe 3. I really want you to watch not Doctor No, because that's not that good. I want you to watch Goldfinger and GoldenEye, personally. That would be my recommendation.
I've definitely seen GoldenEye.
Yeah, but anyway,
and played the N64 game. Anyway, back to
it. Yeah. Of course you played the N64. I think you played it with me. Yeah. So they basically, after George had finished making Empire, they basically started making Indiana Jones on a budget of $18 million, which was half of what the studios who they pitched it to said they could do it, the price it would cost. And they basically said, well, we're going to film it like a TV show. We're going to do it I think they made it in 57 days they shot it in, which, is pretty quick for a Hollywood blockbuster,
it's
basically.
Fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, and it gives it a real... it is fantastical at times, but it gives it that gritty look, that realistic look that you almost, again, very similar to Star Wars. It's like, okay, I always think with these films, it's like, none of the characters are believable, they're quite two-dimensional, but the world they exist in, I can believe that, I can go with that, and maybe that's what I like.
They're believable in that world, even if they're not believable in ours.
Yeah, I think that's where, again, we're going to make a lot of allusions to Star Wars, but I think that's why Star Wars has the legs it's had as well, is because fans can go, here's a reality I can imagine putting characters in and them behaving in it. It's the same with Indiana Jones. Like, I was thinking, watching this again today, there's the bit with the ship's captain, I can't remember the character's name, but where the Nazis basically board the ship and trying to look for Jones, and the lass, and they're like, oh, where's Jones? He's like, we killed him. And it's like, I'd love to see a film about those guys.
Is that Mr. Katanga? Is he black guy?
Mr. Katanga.
Yeah, I know what you mean, when you have a side character who's just got this history that's not shown on the screen at all, and you believe that they exist in that world.
Yeah, and that's something I was thinking. And that's why I recommend this film, is because that's a tribute to the filmmaker's quality of just these weird characters that appear, and you go, oh. And again, a lot of Star Wars stuff is people making. Look at the cult of Boba Fett, a guy who's on screen for about 8 minutes.
I don't know where that's from, other than he's got a weird name and an interesting helmet.
Cool helmet.
I mean,
and a jetpack. He has a jetpack. Everyone digs a jetpack.
Yeah. I was shocked. Anyway, we're not talking about Star Wars, but we sort of always do.
Yeah, and it's going to be a recurring theme with any Spielberg and especially George Lucas stuff, isn't it?
That's fair.
And so they got together, made this film quite quickly, got John Williams to score it, cost them $18 million. They made, worldwide, after video sales, they made $380 million.
180 million?
380 million.
That's a lot of money, if I recall.
Yeah, I mean, it'd take you a while to count it.
Yeah, that must be... I wonder what the highest sort of ratio of budget to gross is.
You can Google it. It's I don't know, the one that's made the most adjusted for inflation, I think...
Gone with the Wind?
Still Gone with the Wind. Shall we Google it?
The benefit that has is it's been re-released 1 million times over 70 years.
Yeah, it does.
Also this week saw Endgame overtake Avatar.
Yeah, I'm
so happy about that.
I am happy about it, but I'm also kind of like, they just did it, didn't they, to get over that line, didn't they? They
did, but they were up against Avatar, and they used much dirtier tactics, and it's also 3D, so it cost more, and there were a million other things they used to inflate it. And I'm just so happy, because Avatar is not a cultural landmark. it's maybe a technological landmark, but nobody ever talks about that film other than the gross and the technology, really.
Yeah.
And how silly it is.
Yeah, and also I watched Dances with Wolves, so
and Pocahontas. I've seen it.
yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it at the time, but as soon as I went out of the cinema, I went, "Oh, that looked really good." Oh, it was Dances with Wolves with blue people, wasn't it?
And I mean, they called it Unobtainium. Like that. That's surely just a placeholder name in the first draft. And oh no, that's in the final draft.
Yeah.
Anyway, what a.
Yeah, I mean, by the fact that scientists are bad at naming things. Yeah, it's real bad, isn't it?
It is pretty bad.
So yeah, they got together, made the film, basically turned Harrison Ford into a megastar. Quite frankly, he went from being a support character in Star Wars to being, I think, I saw something earlier and they were just saying about it how you had a guy who has these two famous characters. It's very rare for an actor or an actress to be famous for two roles.
Especially, basically back to back in 2 or 3 years.
I mean, not even, 2 or 3 years. I mean, he literally went from Empire to Empire and this come out, I think, a year apart. Yeah.
Well, and madness. In fact, one of the things I saw in the behind the scenes was that Lucas did not want Harrison Ford originally because he didn't want him to be his De Niro. He didn't want him to be every film he's in the sort of Johnny Depp, not Richard Burton.
Tim Burton.
Yeah. And then basically after all the screen tests and Tom Selleck had to do Magnum PI, they just went, you know what, let's try him out. Turns out he was quite good at it.
Yeah.
So while we've been chatting, this being 2019, I've been doing other things on my phone, and
that's grown up.
This is for percentage-wise the 20 most profitable movies of all time.
Come on then.
Do you want to have a guess for the top one?
Is this one adjusted for inflation?
I don't know. Let's assume it is.
So if it's adjusted for inflation, and this is films, yeah?
Yeah.
I would say the top one is adjusted for inflation. It's either Star Wars.
Well, think about it. It's not most profit in numbers. It's percentage-wise. So Star Wars would still cost tens of millions.
Oh, so what's made the most?
So it's a very cheap film. It's made a lot of money.
Oh, is it Blair Witch Project?
That's in the top. That's number 5. Yeah. It's a very similar style. Paranormal Activity. Made for $15,000. Grossed $193 million.
I mean, that's... Yeah, I know, yeah.
There's another Lucas film in here actually as well, American Graffiti, which I really like.
I've never seen that.
It's really good. It's really good. It's a real good... it's a coming-of-age 50s film. Yeah. And I find it genuinely really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Maybe we could watch it on this and you could recommend it to me.
That's not a bad idea. I'd have to real buff up on it, but let's do it. Right, let's get back to the film then. So, why do you think I would like it?
So, why I think you would like it is, well, based on Empire. I was hoping you'd like that. Let's put it in its context. I think you might like it because it's a bit more actiony. It's a bit faster pace. It's a bit more grounded in, air quotes, reality, which it's very not, It's a bit more, it's exciting. It's got a pretty solid premise. It's Indiana Jones. He's going out looking for the Ark of the Covenant.
It's got a plot as opposed to Empire.
Hey, Empire has a plot. Yeah, it's got a plot.
Don't you retcon it a plot? It doesn't happen.
Look, Empire has a solid plot, right? Let's not get into this. We've had this. We're not going to argue about Empire anymore. You don't like it. That's fair enough. But this has a great plot, which is, it is a good plot. It's a good narrative. It's got a strong central protagonist. I don't think it's got the strongest villains of the 3 Indiana Jones films that we might discuss. Well, the 2, quite frankly. I think they're better villains in the 3rd one, but they've got they've got Nazis, and Nazis are always a good villain. Especially,
you don't have to exposit why they're villains, really, do you?
Yeah, exactly. They come with a lot of cultural baggage, and
The PR guy has a real problem with that. Yeah, it's a real baggage.
Everyone, no one's sat there going, if only they hadn't, if only the Nazis had won. No one's sat there going in these films. So there's clear delineated enemies, and I think it's just a good adventure film, really. It's good fun.
So it's a right rollicking good adventure. Why do you think I might not like it?
Because you didn't like Empire, quite frankly. It's a bit... The tone sometimes is a little all over the place. I've noticed from watching it today. Obviously, everyone goes to the Stormtrooper School of Shooting, except for Indiana Jones. Which can get a bit frustrating at times. It's aged well, but it hasn't aged perfectly. In terms of maybe its views on, it's implicit views on race and colonialism and the role of science and archaeology and discovery.
To go in and steal things that small tribes really value.
As if, you could call this white man culturally appropriates ancient cultures, artifacts.
He's not gone to a Halloween costume wearing a in a Native American headdress. He's gone and stolen a golden idol.
I did write down earlier, the plot is tenure professor of archaeology Indiana Jones travels the world to recover the fabled Ark of the Covenant, or well-educated serial killer battle Nazis to be the most famous archaeologist in the world. There is that view in it as well.
Right. History's written by the winners, I suppose. Yeah.
Yep, that's definitely true. And I think the character's interesting enough to carry the film, because I think there's that everyman aspect to it. Is like, maybe if I had tried really hard at school, I could have been a professor of archaeology and get tenure and travel the world, digging. Everyone wants to discover, there's a bit in the film where what's he called? I can't remember the name of the characters in this film, and I'm recommending it. Paul Freeman's character goes...
Belloc,
thank
Belosh,
you.
as Salah.
Belosh. He calls him Belosh, and then Shindy goes, "Oh, Belloc, you idiot!" Essentially, I was like, "Well, that was tactful. I thought this guy was your friend."
Yeah, you foreign idiot.
Good. These
with
natives,
45 children.
Yeah, so that made me laugh. And the bit where where Salah, Jonathan Rhys-Davies, gives him a big hug, and he's like, "You are my friend," and he's like, "I am also friends with you, kind of," more or less. He's proper reluctant.
Slightly more reserved.
He's so reluctant to be friends with this guy who's literally tried to save his life on several occasions.
Yeah, absolutely, all the time.
Yeah, who literally helped him discover the Ark of the Covenant.
And saved his life in that cafe.
Yeah.
And again and again and again. Yeah,
he saved it. Yeah, we could count up the amount of times. So yeah. Now, here's the real question.
Oh, yeah.
Do I think you enjoyed this film? I'm going to say that yes, you did.
Why?
Oh, because of the reasons I just mentioned.
Right, okay, yeah.
That's why I think you'd like it. Because it's a bit of fun, and it's a bit of old school kind of. The plot's not complicated, the characters aren't overly complicated, the actions...
What are you trying to say about me? Oh yeah, you'll like it because it's not complicated. You'll understand it thick.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm trying to say you can sit and watch it and enjoy it. And I think you might. It maybe doesn't have the weight of kind of cynicism and hilarity and that kind of the heart maybe that the Princess Bride had, but I think you don't get the Princess Bride without films like Indiana Jones.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yeah, I'll give my view. And here's my take. Yeah, I loved it.
Yay! That's my response to that. I'm so delighted you like this after... Okay, so what was your favourite scene then?
My favourite scene... I've thought about this and I really should have one prepared. I don't.
It is it's as if we, prepare these.
Yeah, I know. It's a podcast, I mean, nobody prepares. It's really difficult because one of the things that I really loved about this film was the dialogue. And there's 3 or 4 lines that I just had to write down as soon as it came on. So when I'm thinking of a favourite scene, really often I'm just thinking about what that line was. You know what, I think I'm going to go basic. I think it's the first scene.
Right, that's brilliant because that literally echoes what I put as my favourite scene as well, yeah. I don't think that scene's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's a bit of some incongruities in it where, the guide trekking him through to the entrance of the cave suddenly pulls a gun on him, and then he slowly turns around and whips it out of his hand. Essentially, it's in the time it takes him to turn around and whip it out of his hand, he would have shot him, or at least shot at him. And then he runs off, and then he's like, "Oh, so you're okay?" to the other guy, so you can come. That kind
it's real
of
film logic, isn't it? Yeah,
I would have been like, yeah. But go on. So, what did you enjoy about that scene?
What I really liked was that I've probably seen that scene before. I vaguely remembered seeing it in an English lesson, and you've seen it in culture. The sort of rolling boulder and in trying to get the weight correct for the idol. But what I found was that even with that knowledge, and even probably having seen it before, I really, really liked it, and a few things surprised me. Some of the traps surprised me. I thought it was nicely gruesome, seeing the guy on the spike. I really liked that it was Alfred Molina, so I thought, oh, he's going to be a major character. That's Alfred Molina. And then he doesn't get past the first 6 minutes. It's a great intro to the character, because he's mysterious, and he's dangerous, and he's smart. But he's also quite fun, and I think there's two of the big reasons why I like this and I didn't like Star Wars is the main character is an active hero. Luke isn't an active hero really. He's very whingy and reactive, and Indy is very active. There's the.
Do you think it could be that difference between Luke's kind of discovering who he is, and he's going on that hero's journey of maturity, where when you meet Indy, he's a man who knows himself.
He's
if that
already
makes
there.
sense. Yeah, he's at the peak of his abilities, so to speak. Already, he's a professor. He's a hand. He knows all his stuff about what he's trying to do. There is flaws in him, which I think we're going to discuss. But he's not. I don't think personally he's not relatable for me, but he is enjoyable to watch him do his thing.
Yeah, I can't relate to being an extraordinarily handsome archaeologist who makes. Well, I was going to say some horrible things there. Who's like that?
Go on,
it's quite possible that the fact that I like the characters, my libido getting in the way, because I was just like, oh, God, get in there, go on, Harrison, And that one of the suits he's wearing when he's like, oh, just like, oh yes, that is a suit.
There was a lot of that of maybe the production design for the costume. On
great.
Season is good, isn't it?
I've forgotten her name actually. I was watching an interview with her, with the costume designer, and she was saying she had to find a hat that was immediately recognisable, but completely like every other hat. You see it in silhouette, and that's Indy's hat, but it's like other hats you've seen. They really had to I don't know the word, but they had to age or sort of stress wear the his jacket. And she said she had metal splinters in her hands for weeks or something like that. I didn't really understand what that process involved. Yeah, costume design was really well done.
Yeah, he always looks world weary, doesn't he?
Yeah.
There's that, where he's like, oh, it's not the age, it's the mileage when he's on the boat.
I think that's my favourite line.
Yeah, that is a great line.
I love it.
It's not. So yeah, what were your favourite lines then?
So I've got 3 or 4. Let me just find them. So I'll tell you what. Can you guess any of them? So you've got one already.
Yeah, I've got one already. See, for me, I think the better lines in this series come from the second and third films. and I think the ones in this one don't jump out at me. I've written one down that was my favourite.
You've written?
I've written, yeah. Written, some say in some circles. Some people say written, but there's no in there, so I'm going written. I've written. I'll defend myself. Yeah, so I've written. My favourite line was, it's actually not by Indy, it's by Belloc, and it's when he says, when they're in the cafe, and he's basically saying, he's talking to Indy, saying, oh, me and you are so similar, and this is what motivates us. And he picks up the pocket watch that he has, and he goes, look at this, it's worthless, $10 from a vendor in the street.
Oh, yeah.
But I take it and bury it in the sand for 1,000 years, and it becomes priceless, like the Ark. Men will kill for it, men like you and me. And I just wrote, this is the premise of the movie. This is the premise of Indiana Jones. This is the premise of the movie.
And there's a great callback to it, isn't there, when he traps him in with the snakes?
Yeah, exactly.
Years, you'll be worth something. Well, actually, funnily enough, one of the lines I've got is in that same conversation. And funnily enough, another Star Wars link really is Belloc, and that is saying to him, look, you're on the light side, but it's pretty, it wouldn't take much for you to be on the dark side. It's when Indy says, you want to talk to God? Let's both see him together. And he's kind of proposing a deathly shootout. The other one, which I thought was fantastic, it's after I think it's after he's fought the big German.
Yeah, with the mustachioed German.
Yeah. And
that's a good scene.
As the Nazis are getting away with the Ark, and I think he's getting on a horse, and they say, where are you going? What are you going to do? And he says, I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. And he just and then just tails off. And I just think, what a hero that guy is. He's not going to sit around and call the police or arrange something. He's just going to follow them on a horse while they're in these trucks with guns. Just hope he kills them first. What a guy.
Yeah, it's a wonder he lived so long, to be honest. I like the bit when he's running from the natives in Peru at the beginning, and he's and they've they all set off at around the same time, but then by the time they get into the clearing, he's got a good 20-30 meters on them. And
I like the way he's barking. What is it? Start the plane! Start the plane!
Yeah, and the guy's just caught a fish as well, the pilot. That is brilliant. There's a bit literally where he looks at his rod and goes, I've just caught a fish. I'm not. It's like, what's that coming towards me? I'm really hungry. I enjoyed. Yeah, that's good. I like. What did you think of some of the performances then, of some of the characters and the actors?
Karen Allen was fantastic as, I've forgotten her name now, the female lead.
Yep, she is called Marion.
Marion. God, I should have known that. So yeah, I thought Karen Allen was fantastic as Marion. She's a good character as well. She's a damsel sometimes, but she's also very active and tries to, fix her own destiny. I thought Paul Freeman was wonderful as Belloc. Just a complex villain. To the extent that I was surprised that he was one of the three that died at the end, to be honest. They were so in the odd scene that he would have a conscience and that he was actually interested in Marion and actually wanted to save her and all this. And then, nope, he just dies with the Nazis.
Like at the beginning, you watch the very first scene when the guy who tries to double-cross Indy, he double-crosses the double-crosser almost, and he just lets the natives kill him straight away. So I think they set out early doors to say, no, this guy's unscrupulous.
It's true. I mean, he's working with the Nazis. And he's Indy's long-term nemesis. It's quite clear this isn't the first time he's caught a find ahead of him.
Yeah.
But again, I think it comes down to a really good performance, quite an interesting character. He's French, so he's not German. So you kind of go, he's a bit of a mercenary, perhaps. He's got his own agenda. I thought it was a really good performance.
Yeah, I think maybe it would have been better to have him live. Also, at the end scene, I saw today there's an outtake where he's getting ready to do the ritual, but in the film he's just suddenly dressed like a Jewish priest from like 3,000 years ago or something, and I'm like, wait, what? And I remember as a kid thinking, what? Where's that guy got? What
was he carrying that all along?
Yeah, he was in the. That was when they were on the chase scene when he was like on the front of the van and he like goes underneath. Like I would have thought the trope where the driver would have been like, "Oh, drive into the back of the car," and Belloc must be like, "No, don't do that. I've got my priceless replica Jewish priest outfit there. Do you know how hard it is to get people to make that? You've got thousands, mate." So yeah, I think that was a bit jarring that you didn't see that, and I think that's maybe where I think cinema has matured over the last nearly 40 years since this was made. They do explain little things like that. It's like I think the scene when they're on the roof terrace in
yeah.
And literally the scene, it just smash cuts. You're on this roof terrace. There's all these kids around a monkey, and you're like, well, maybe it just belongs to that family that Indy's visiting. And then you're told that the monkey isn't belonging to that family because the mother comes over and is like, who is this? What is this animal doing here? What's this all about? And then the American being all nice and, oh yeah, it's lovely. And she's like, right, we're keeping it. And it's like, that. I think if nowadays you would see maybe the monkey being dispatched by the guy who's about as subtle as a bulldozer going through an orphanage. As if I was going to pick somebody who might have sinister intent, would it be the normal-looking guy who looks like everyone else, or the guy dressed relatively in black with an eye patch? I'm struggling with this one.
Eye patch screams reliability and trustworthiness in films always. Yeah, I suppose it is that is the fantastical element of it. That sort of feels like something that George Lucas would do. Just live up to these ridiculous colour conventions. That's the bad guy. That's the good guy. There's no line here. I mean, I'd really like I can't remember his name now. The main sort of little Nazi.
The one who is like the Gestapo guy?
Yeah, he's brilliant because he's very cold, and I think the best one was him with him is the coat hanger.
Yeah, that bit's brilliant, isn't it?
It's wonderful. It's like, what is he gonna? What is this? What's he gonna? Oh, it's a coat hanger. He's got class.
Yeah, that's Spielberg. I think that's the difference between Spielberg and Lucas. Where Lucas, I don't think he was capable of doing that kind of visual gag.
I think again. Well, in fact, I don't think I mentioned it. I said there was two reasons why I like this and I didn't like Star Wars. The first one was the active hero. The second one is this film doesn't take itself as seriously as Star Wars does. It's quite funny, and it's sort of funny. Some of the fights are quite slapstick, and it seems like intentional slapstick sometimes. The big punching sounds and Harrison Ford's confused face. I think it's got a sense of humour, as I don't think Star Wars has.
Yeah, no, definitely. Star Wars is much straighter than this is. That was an intention. It works to pull you into the film at times, but it also
it's alienating.
A lack of it can be, can't it? Where with this, there's a more human element to it. But I think sometimes there's one bit where it really comes out. I don't think it's very well handled. So and it's within a good scene as well. It's like when they're on the boat and he's looking in the mirror at his face. And there's bruising on his face, and Marion's looking at herself on the other side of the mirror, and she wipes she's trying to get the condensation off it or something, isn't she?
Oh yeah.
And she flips it round and smacks him in the head with it, and he lets an almighty scream out. They smash cut to the outside of the boat where there's this blood curdling stream, and then she looks at him and goes, "Oh, are you all right?" As if like he'd just gone, "Oh, ow." He made no noise that couldn't be heard from a mile away. Again. Yeah, so that, so that kind of, how he didn't die of infection, I'm still not...
It's got that classic cliche of, hero goes through hell, gets shot, etc., but then only winces and feels pain when a woman is tending his wounds. It's a brilliant classic trope, that.
Yeah, but, I mean, so... What else? Is there anything else you liked about it, other than?
I thought it was just fun. I enjoyed myself watching it. Like I said, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's very fun. The hero, he's got this great element where he's interested in it for a historical point of view, but he's actually sceptical as to the real value of what he's finding, and then slowly comes around to that. I don't know quite what else to add. It's fun, it's funny, it's well acted, and it just had a lot of great action actually, going under the truck. Him kind of reversing the fortunes. You've got the Nazi driving the truck. He's underneath it. He somehow gets up, gets around, kicks him underneath it, and then he dies. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, watching it today, it was the action. It just ramps up, doesn't it? Each time you get a little bit of action, and then it goes away. You get a little bit of action, then it goes away, and then suddenly from the part in the desert with the plane, the action just keeps ramping up to the very end of the film.
Yeah, and everything seems like a really good practical effect. At some points it looks a bit cheap, like when he's knocking the statue over when they're in the snake pit. It looks like it's polystyrene and foam. But it's sort of not a problem, is it? When I think this is one of the great things about a film, not taking itself too seriously, or being too per-faced, or whatever the phrase would be. Because you forgive it those things. It was the same when we talked about The Princess Bride. When the Cliffs of Insanity is a clear model and it's clearly not real, you go, well, that's just lovely because it's not taking itself seriously. When, again, Star Wars Empire Strikes Back takes itself seriously, everything looks quirky, and you don't forgive it because you think, well, if you're going to hold yourself to a high standard and not want to make me laugh, then screw you.
To me, except for Indiana Jones, the heroes always make the right decision, and everyone who is clearly designated as not a hero makes the wrong decision or doesn't have an intelligent thought in their body.
There's a few cliches, leaving the hero to die in an elaborate way and then just expecting that he dies. It's the sort of thing that Austin Powers was very good at parodying.
Is that but that only happens, legitimately only really happens once, doesn't it? When you think about it, and the chances of him actually escaping
True.
Minuscule. I can forgive it. Like you said, you can forgive it when it's... I think it's funny, there's bits where, when he throws her when the Nazis throw her into that room, that chamber, and she goes down head first, and then all of a sudden she's hanging from one of the teeth off one of the statues, and you're like, physics?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm delighted you liked it, actually.
I genuinely expected not to like it. I genuinely expected to dislike it in the same way I dislike Star Wars, and I dislike a lot of sort of Lucasfilm type things from the 70s and 80s where they're sort of classics and so on, but actually I find them a bit silly.
Yeah, so do you want to do what the critics said?
Yeah, I can do a couple of things. So I was on Rotten Tomatoes for our American listeners, which I'm sure we have lots of, and it has a 95% rating from critics, so it's rated fresh, and 96% from not critics. So I'll go for a couple of things. What we've done on every episode so far is referred to Roger Ebert, so I'll do that one more time. He calls it an out-of-body experience, a movie of glorious imagination and breakneck speed. It celebrates the stories we spent our adolescence searching for in the pulp adventure magazines. He's very fulsome about it. It's more than a movie; it's a catalogue of adventure, and it really is. It really is an adventure. I was intrigued. I thought 95%. That means there must be a negative review out there, and I found one from the New Yorker. And the first sort of 500 words of the article are talking about essentially that the movie business is too much of a business now. And saying that it appears that Lucas and Spielberg think just like the marketing division. Spielberg can stage a movie cliché so that it has Fred Astaire's choreographic snap to it. He transcends the clichés by sensational whiplash editing, but Spielberg's technique may be too much for the genre. They basically don't like some of the decisions. There's no exhilaration in this dumb motor excitement. Saying that the best of these kind of films, Gunga Din, was carefree and there was time to kind of enjoy things, but this one, it's edited too quickly, so there's no time to enjoy.
That's a strange critique of it, isn't it? The editing is bad. I think it won an Oscar for its editing.
They've also found a few kind of... Well, I think maybe that is an issue in that we talked about in the Star Wars episode. Films have got, objectively faster pace now. Maybe this writer, Pauline Kael, is writing from a point of view where films tend to be a bit slower, and then this is just a bit unusual. There's a good few questions that they've asked Pauline Kael, which I agree with. Yeah, so the Well of Souls, where the Ark is buried, is so exposed that it...
how is it missed? How did a well-trained archaeologist go? See that mound over there? Do you think that's human-made, or do you think that was? Do you think that's just? I think that's just the terrain. We should maybe do some sort of geological survey of this area to have a look. Yeah.
No. You saw the light. Yeah. Why isn't Indy's dig at least over the ridge from Belloc's, so we can believe that Belloc didn't spot it until the crucial moment? And then this one I completely agree with. Why are we shown scenes that prepare us for Belloc to have a change of heart?
Yeah, like there's the bit where they're both genuinely Marion and Belloc are both genuinely laughing in the tent, and either Marion's the world's greatest actress, or she's actually having a good time with Belloc. Do you know what I mean?
It was very confusing, that scene, because he's brought her in she's a sort of captive, and he's put her in a nightgown. I didn't understand why he thought she'd be, DTF.
DTF, sorry, you've lost me there.
Down to fuck.
Oh, sorry.
It was interesting because it was obvious from the viewer's point of view that she was going to be just doing this to manipulate him, and I thought, well, maybe he knows that, and he's just going to catch her in the manipulation. And she grabs that knife, but actually, that's kind of not how it goes. They
he laughs, doesn't he? And then she laughs as well, doesn't she?
Yeah. And then later on, he implores the Nazis to at least let her go.
Yeah.
And again, you think, well, is that just because he wants a sort of sex slave, or has he actually grown fond of her? And he's an interesting character. There's a bit where Indy's got the rocket launcher, and Belloc, while he has a fly that's trying to get into his mouth, he just has a wonderful little, fine, I'll call you bluff sort of moment. He's a great character.
He's a more I think they kind of set him out, don't they, in the in that cafe scene more. They flesh him out better, and he goes, well, I'm kind of I'm you, but I've made that pact with the dark side, I suppose. With I believe that the ends justify the means justify the ends, sort of thing. So
it's probably better than him being a cackling Nazi, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and I think maybe the filmmakers have made obviously a conscious decision to go, well, no, he gets his just desserts because he didn't go about it the right way like Indy did. Like if he had teamed up with Indy and treated them both, if they'd both worked as equals rather than him being driven by his own ego, then perhaps they would have been colleagues rather than enemies. But because Belloc chooses to go with the wrong side, then he deserves what he gets.
He is working for the Nazis.
Yeah, even that back then they knew the Nazis were bad. If you're gonna, but yeah, she's right. You can't deny it. There is some ambiguity to that character that isn't resolved.
It's fair enough. It's not a perfect film, but it's pretty close, or at least it's very, very good.
Yeah, it's very good in it's perfect within its genre, isn't it?
Yeah.
The action adventure kind of globe-trotting sort of, like, it's very Bond-esque as well. Well, it is a direct result of Bond, but you can see why it is a good Bond film. You put Bond in these situations and you change out the Ark of the Covenant for a warhead that's going to kill half the world or something. Is it, like I was sat thinking today, is the Ark of the Covenant actually a critique of of nukes? Do you know what I mean? Is it like a nuclear proliferation?
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Is it to do with that as well? Because obviously Tot's face melts like he's been burned by 1,000 degrees.
I mean, we haven't mentioned the effects on that. I watched a brilliant making of the effort that they had to put into those three effects, and particularly the face melting. I mean, what an effect! Yeah. It didn't age well, but I don't know. I mean, you can see it's an effect, but it's not like bad CGI.
No, it's not, is it? It's not. It has weight to it. I think the thing that I think they should have taken his glasses off because they do it in stop motion, don't they?
Yeah.
And the glasses go from being on his ears and then they kind of fall jauntily, awkwardly.
Oh, I like that. And then his hat falls as well when there's less head to support it. I think it works really well.
Yeah, there's a frame or two missing where the glasses should have fallen. They appear in one part and then the next part there's no transition. That's my other critique of it. But it is a cool effect. It's weird how the three of them have different deaths, though.
I know, I did find that interesting. I thought, does that tell you something about the characters? Nope. I just really, really wanted to try out some different effects.
Yeah, the special effects guy on this ended up doing Ghostbusters as well. And you can really see that when that female spirit comes out straight at the camera lens. I thought, that looks really like Ghostbusters. And then when I was looking at some stuff today afterwards, I was like, oh, well, yeah, it's the guy who lit Ghostbusters. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it works as well. It's quite a haunting bit of ghost story.
yeah. I might write about it. I like so much about this film. I really do. I like how it's kind of almost a horror film as well, like a kind of a B-genre horror film.
I mean, the snake coming out of the skull. Oh.
Yeah.
I nearly sick in my shoe.
Nearly sick in your shoe. Yeah, when I don't like the bit when she's going through like the mausoleum and they all kind of that's a bit hokey because they wouldn't be moving.
Yeah, because you go, is that just from her point of view or have we gone into a different film now? Yeah,
and in Indiana Jones, quite possible, but yeah, I think that was a bit silly, and that's where it finds its feet. It goes, right, well, we're going to have supernatural elements. I mean, because I knew the ending of this, that didn't seem unusual, but I think if you're watching it for the first time, everything's been quite, as hyper-real as it is and as fake as it is. It works within its own kind of rules, and then you all of a sudden have, it's actually some evil spirits from God or whatever.
I suppose they might have shot a version where she was just sort of falling about into them and they were stuck still, and you went, what a silly woman. Why don't you just not do that and just stand still? And so they thought, well, if we give them some agency and actually make it seem like they're closing in on her.
Yeah. What else did I...
It was great.
What else did I like about it? It's just, it works, doesn't it? It works in its own kind of space. Like the fights, well, sometimes they're a bit slapstick, and they're believable to the point where this is. I think it knows it knows it's this film, so it knows that the fights aren't. All the actions are hyperbolic. People. Oh, I've been punched. Oh,
Well, it's an adventure, and it has the theme. Da, 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 da. So it's going to be very hyperbolic.
Yeah, let's talk about the music. So you've clearly heard the Indiana Jones theme before.
Yeah.
Like you're 30 years of age. You would have, you're on the internet and television. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, so like in Star Wars, and I think in this, the music tells a lot of the plot as well. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it tells the plot. What do you mean by that?
So when they're having the conversation about the Ark of the Covenant, when they're doing the exposition with the two military intelligence guys, that this is a serious thing because the music stirs and rises, and it goes a bit, it doesn't. They're just having a conversation. There's no music, and then they mention the Ark, and they shows the two guys the picture of the light coming out of it and people's themselves from it, and it's kind of like the music says that no, this is legitimate, this is a thing. It's not like there's no cynicism there. There's no like, oh yeah, whatever, the Ark of the Covenant. I think in modern filmmaking you might not have that musical cue, or it might seem unrealistic. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that John Williams is not into subtlety.
Yeah, he's not, is he? There isn't, but when it rises, it's important. I think
it's effective. Yeah, it's because they're making a classic, immediately recognisable sort of theme. There was one bit where the music didn't or it was a bit of a red herring. So Mr. Katanga, the captain of the ship, there's a moment where they're talking, and I think it was Indy says to Salah, do you trust them? He's talking about the people on the ship. And it cuts to Mr. Katanga at that moment, and the music changes, and he's lighting his cigarette in such a way that I think, I'm not supposed to trust this person at all. And I was just waiting for his inevitable betrayal, and it didn't happen. He was great all the way through.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I thought that when I was watching it today. I was like, oh, Katanga. Again, that's why I say one of the themes of this is racism. Let's not deny
he's just black, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's how he
does
talks.
Everything right. Endangers his own life.
So I wrote down when I was writing down the cast. So I put the cast down. I was like Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Jonathan Rhys-Davies, Ronald Lacey, Denholm Elliott, Alfred Molina, and then I put and some foreign people who were unfortunate, not born either American or English, hence why they always spoke English, even to someone of their own nationality.
That's why they're not credited on the...
And then I put, to illustrate this, the helper of Indy at the very start of the movie also plays the Nazi collaborator with the eye patch and the monkey. I didn't notice either.
John Rhys-Davies, clearly not an Egyptian name, plays Salah.
Yeah, it's like, let's think of an Egyptian name. Salah, yeah, who should we cast? Well, there's a bloke who's very Welsh. They're clearly related.
Yeah, he's got a beard though, and he's quite fat. Oh, okay, yeah, he could, yeah.
Yeah, he could, he could pass for Egyptian if we say he's Egyptian. It's like the bits at the camp, the dig site, and they're like there's like when the Nazi pulls on Indy's arm as they're trying to be subtly walking away, and he's like asking him for water, and he's like, well, you'd know if you were a Nazi, you would notice another white guy in this country of Arabs. You'd be like, you'd be like, you're a German. You'd be quite intrigued to why there's just some random white guy who isn't Rene Belloc wandering around.
Yeah,
you would ask.
He never covers his face.
You would literally inquire, and then
it's Harrison Ford. Even if he wasn't a celebrity, you go, I'll remember that face if I see it again.
Yeah. It's like when they're doing the digging for the Well of Souls, and like the critic, she said, like at least put it out of the camp. Yeah, it's like he's digging for hours, and then as the sun's coming up or as the sun's setting or something, he suddenly takes off his disguise. It's like if anyone walks out there and has a bit of a poke around, is that the guy we were supposed to be after earlier? I heard he had a cowboy hat, a bullwhip. He wore a lot of khaki and beige.
Yeah. This guy's got a tan that means he was definitely wearing a hat like that.
Yeah. There's little funny things like that properly amuse me. But then you get the shot because you get Indiana Jones stood with the sun setting and that iconic figure.
There's such good use of shadow and silhouette in this film.
Yeah, like when he comes into the bar and she's like, "We're closed."
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I'd love to know her remedy for instant hangover, intoxication.
She basically cannot get drunk. I think that's her character. She just... I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, she literally has... she's impervious to alcohol.
Yeah.
Except in drinking contests for a split second.
Well, I mean, even then it seemed like she was just putting that on. I don't know. It was weird, wasn't it? Immediately sober. Never addressed. She's just drunk a 400-pound man under the table.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Yeah.
Clearly the local alcoholic who, is her. Yeah, I would have liked a bit more backstory with how she ended up in Nepal. Like, I think there was a deleted scene where she explains it better.
It is a bit out of the way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and then how she ended up there is a bit random. I know she's like the daughter of like a famous archaeologist, but for her to just randomly be in Nepal for like it's like, well, I'm gonna go find the Ark of the Covenant. I need this MacGuffin to find my MacGuffin, so I'll go speak to my ex-girlfriend. Oh, where does she live? Does she live down the road? No, Nepal, mate. It's gonna take me.
We need a
weeks
first
to get
act. What are you talking about? Down the road?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people travel.
Yeah,
this day and age. It is the 1930s after all.
That's a point. Yeah, he's not sort of travelling a lot, is he? He travels a lot, but that's not a big part of the. I suppose there's the old phrase. What is it? Save on the shoe leather. Shoe leather. You don't need to show them walking from point to point, but he's going from Nepal to Egypt to God knows where.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he go to Peru in that little plane?
What, the little water plane?
Yeah.
Doubt it. I mean, imagine he didn't.
What was the setup for commercial air flight at that time? 1936.
I would imagine that. So in that bit, they would have flown from maybe the bit where they are to like a major city, and then got a ship back to America.
Probably. And then,
or a ship to like another port that would then take them.
Yeah, but in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, here's a fun fact for you about that film. So the ship, there's an actual name for him, and I can't remember it. Not important. Nobody really uses them anymore.
Yeah, semi-aquatic.
Yeah, so the plane that they use, when they do the shot in the dock of the Pan Am plane.
Oh right,
that's actually Howard Hughes' original plane that belonged to Howard Hughes. Yeah, that's why that shot looks really awkward, because they had to film it on a dry lot and then do matte paintings and like visual effects in front of it. That's why it's a really strange looking shot if you go back and watch it. Yeah,
that's an unnecessarily expensive bit of kit.
Yeah, but it's that authenticity, isn't it? That
yeah.
Lucas and Spielberg were able to pull. People would lend or let them rent things that gave it an authenticity. So that's little stuff like that. So unnecessary, but
it really works.
But then they built the Nazi plane that kills the big German.
Right.
Also, I mean, look, I've never sympathy for Nazis, but I do have a little bit of sympathy for the guy who's about to fly the Ark of the Covenant out of that place. Like, he's just there. Do you know what I mean? He's like, I'm a pilot, I'm German. I don't really agree with this, probably, but I need, I've got a skill.
You're ascribing him some characteristics there.
I am.
I mean, he's a Nazi pilot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not defending Nazis, but there was plenty of people who weren't Nazis who were in the German army. I think they put a lot of Wehrmacht like words around on stuff to be like, no, this is the Wehrmacht. To be in this, you are a Nazi. I think that's a bit of a... Yeah, so would you like to know how many people... You mentioned it earlier. Would you like to know how many people Indy murdered?
Oh, okay. I'm going to guess 28.
28, not bad. So, in this one, he only murdered 11 people.
Oh.
2 shot in the head. Yeah. One of them whilst in a moving vehicle as well. That was impressive.
It was impressive, yeah.
Yeah. That one shocked me, actually, today when I watched it. I was like, oh, he shot that guy right in the face. I forgot how violent these films were. Yeah. I did then watch a kill count on YouTube for all the people he's murdered in all 4 films. 67.
67.
Yeah.
I suppose when you've murdered 40.
Yeah, why stop?
Yeah, I mean, it does jar, because it's for young people, isn't it? It's not even a 12, I don't think.
So apparently, when they made this film, it wasn't the people being shot in the head that was the problem. There was the exploding head of...
Yeah, they just
Bella.
covered it with fire, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, so Steven Spielberg literally got the American rating agency to create a new rating. So they invented PG-13.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course. Which is basically our 12, isn't it?
Yeah. So, speaking of facts, let's go on to the quiz.
Oh, cool.
Are you ready for the quiz? Actually, before we go on to the quiz, I have to ask, I think I know what the answer to this is.
Oh, yeah.
So, how many bullwhips out of 10 do you give Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I think I'll give it a 7.8 bullwhips.
7.8 bullwhips,
7.8 bullwhips,
Not quite the full bullwhip number there.
Close to 8, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very good, and I would happily recommend it.
Yeah, well, do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really many other people who haven't seen it. That's the problem I'm finding. If I really liked Empire Strikes Back, who the hell would I recommend it to? Because everyone else has seen it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things is films like this, because they're so universally popular, you almost are being contrarian in not liking them.
Yeah, it's taking a political stance almost.
I can see the flaws in this. It's the same as Star Wars. But I think with this one, like you said, the characters are better. The action's different, but it is. I think the action's good in both of them, but for different reasons.
Why do you like, again, not that it's a Star Wars pod, but why do you prefer Empire to this?
Because I prefer the narrative. I like the characters better.
Fair enough. And I suppose it's part of a bigger universe, isn't it?
But yeah, I find Indiana Jones is, compared to Star Wars, it's an exciting film where with Star Wars you've got a cultural phenomenon, and I do like the cultural side of Star Wars. I'm not going to pretend I don't. I like the world building better in Star Wars. You know, I don't think you don't get Indiana Jones if there's no Star Wars.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and I think it's a film that's about a character rather than the universe in which that character lives.
Yeah, I think the morality's better in Star Wars. I know that's a trite thing to say about these things, and Jones is a moral guy. You know, he's not out to sleep around. He's doing the right thing by the artifacts for the period of his time. He's still a guy who's quite happy to kill people. Like when they're
like the fact that he's not a white knight. He's a bit more hard-boiled and a bit more broken than that.
Yeah, he's almost a bit film noir, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Right, should we get on to the quiz? Should we do our quiz thing?
Yeah, quiz. That's the theme show. Quiz. Right, so question 1. I don't know why I changed my voice there, but I did. What is the lost city in Egypt called?
Oh, God. So this is supposed to be an easy one, isn't it?
No, this one's quite a hard one.
I don't know. Cairo.
That's why I actually originally wrote the question out. What is the city in Egypt called? So you didn't say Cairo. So I had to put Lost in there. No, it's Tanis.
Oh, Tanis. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was the only hard question I could think of to give you. To be honest with you,
that caught me out.
Yeah, because I only know that because I played Rome Total War.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Second question: who was originally? I think you're going to know this one. Who was originally slated to play Indiana Jones?
Is that Tom Selleck?
It is Tom Selleck. No, Tom Selleck. No, Higgins. All the beans are for Tom Selleck. Yeah, I thought you might get that one. Which actor is connected to a Marvel property from this film?
Good question. Well, Alfred Molina was Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2.
There you go, that's the answer.
That's good. I like that question.
I was kind of hoping you weren't going to recognise that it was Alfred Molina.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I was first watching that scene, I thought, oh, this is Alfred Molina, so surely he's going to be in this film for a long time. Yep,
so that's 2 from 3 so far. This one I don't think you'll get unless you researched it. What did the sound design team record in order to make the boulder sound?
I have no idea. Pinball machine? I really don't know.
So they were basically, they had a big problem with that one because they had something that was supposed to have weight and heft to it, but how do you physically go out and record something without making yourself a giant boulder rolling through a cave? So apparently they were struggling with it for a while, and the main sound designer guy, his name is Ben Burt. He was in the car with one of his colleagues, and they were, for some reason, they were rolling down this hill quietly without the engine on, and he just had a bit of inspiration. Went, that's our noise for our boulder. We'll add a bit more sound design on top of it. So he said he pulled out a mic, recorded it, and just so it gave the weight because and they turned the engine on, it gave the weight of the boulder, and Yeah, it's brilliant. It's flawless, isn't it?
It's great.
Yeah, it is. It's so... I think sound design is really clever.
Honestly, yeah. If you could be a Foley artist and just mess around with, hitting slabs of meat with a bloody artichoke and just find out what that sounds like and, figure out how do we make this sound. Great
it's always how they have such random things associated to other things, though, that it's brilliant, I always think.
It reminds me a little bit of that bit in The Simpsons. It's not about sound design, but just the idea that he used something that's absolutely not like the thing. When they're filming... What's the superhero called that Milhouse plays?
Oh, crikey.
Anyway.
Atom Boy or something like that.
Yeah, Up and Atom. Anyway, when they're filming that in Springfield and they see the guys, they're painting some... What is it? They're painting some horses to look like cows. And he says, well, cows don't look like cows on film, so you paint some horses. And he says, what about if you need a cow? He says... Oh, sorry, what about if you need a horse? You just stick some cats together. Sellotape a bunch of cats together or something. Or glue a bunch of cats together. I just thought it's a great line.
Yeah, I think it's glue some cats together, isn't it? And then this is just a funny little question, which you'll either know this or you won't again. Which actor shit himself because of illness on set?
It must be Harrison Ford.
No, it wasn't. It was it was
so he was the one who had what we might think was dysentery. It
was Jonathan Rhys Davies.
What? How did that happen?
He was so ill one day on set that he just literally couldn't hold it in and apparently squatted down and shat himself.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I'm glad he's got that out in the world.
Yeah.
You know, that's something you don't want to be on the internet, but it's there now. Sorry, Jonathan.
Carolinica's in the same ballpark, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say in the same boat, but you won't want to be in that boat.
Not that boat, no. It'd be, you'd at least want a working toilet, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was meant to be the bonus question, but I thought... But, yes, so that's Indiana Jones or Raiders of the Lost Ark. Call it what you want. As long as you don't call it Empire
Raiders.
Back. Yeah, Raiders. It's a pretty fun film, isn't it?
Well, I'm glad you recommended it. I'm glad I've seen it, both to be a member of our society, but also
welcome.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely be going to watch the other ones as well. Except Crystal Skull.
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll end up seeing it eventually. I mean, there's some good bits in it, but the first act is really good, I think, and then there's a bit when they're in the jungle in South America, and they're being chased by the Russians.
Is this when Shia LaBeouf swings from vine to vine? Yeah,
and it loses him, and once it loses it there, you're just like, no, what have you done to my childhood?
So I'll watch it, and then I'll literally, when they're in the jungle, I'll go, right, I'll skip scene. I won't let it affect the rest of the film. Sorted, easy peasy.
Yeah.
So what are we doing next week?
So next week, we're going to do Get Out.
Well, I think that brings us nicely to the end of a very positive podcast episode.
2-2-2-1 to you? Yeah?
Well, yeah, 2 recommendations, 1 absolutely not recommend. So if you've enjoyed this episode, if you want to give us any feedback, if you want to get in touch on social media, we can be found on Twitter at PleaseWatchPod.
Old school email.
Or do you have the email address there? We can be emailed.
At pleasewatchthispod@gmail.com. Fire us off. Tell us what you thought about the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, we'd love to know. Do you like it? Do you agree with it? Would you recommend it? Obviously, being rational human beings, we probably would. But you know, we always like to have different opinions. we need them, don't we, Sam?
We do. Yeah, rate us, etc.
Yeah,
you've
do it.
Heard all this in the other podcasts you will listen to. So
no, do it.
do it, but for us, not for them. Give us reviews. It helps.
Yeah.
Well, it's a relative. It's a market, isn't it?
Don't do the wrong thing by us.
Do what you feel is right,
because we need the likes. Yeah. I mean, if you're still listening now, 5 stars.
Yeah, you've made it this far.
We'll wait. I'll wait. You'll wait, Sam, while they write it. We'll still be airing. Yeah, we'll give it Yeah,
we've got another 20 minutes.
We'll talk amongst ourselves.
Of silence.
We're friends. We've got things to catch up on. You write the review. Give it 5 stars. A thumbs up or whatever these. We should really know these. But yeah, do that. We'd appreciate it. It makes us look good. We get higher. Sorry, apparently it makes you higher in charts. Good. Which means more.
That's great. Yeah.
More people.
Next time we'll do this in less than 2 minutes.
Sorry, I'm talking over you now. Yeah. Yeah.
Cross chat.
Sam,
love it. All right. Well, Hugh Dempsey, it's been a pleasure.
Bye. Bye now. Have you written the review?
Goodbye from him.
5 stars, yeah.